And with that carries a new set of responsibilities, a new set of obligations. And so to Tom's point, I think our responsibility was to always care for people in the community.
Sure.
And now that we are who we are, there's a responsibility greater than just caring for the patients who walk through our door. It's how are we brokering partnerships throughout our community? How are we working with other organizations to try and create opportunities that may not be there, serve underserved communities, et cetera?
Sure.
So welcome to the table. Joining us today are a couple of friends from Springfield Clinic. Tom Fitch, Vice President of Facilities, Real Estate, and Construction.
You got it.
And
Impressive.
Zach Kerker, Chief Officer of Brand and Advocacy.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I butcher that a little bit.
That was perfect.
I butcher a lot of things. No, welcome. We really appreciate you guys joining us and appreciate the relationship that we have.
Yeah, appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Can I just say that it's a great setup? Right. So I appreciate this. Like, these are good microphones. These are good cameras. This is a cool setup. I see some of the podcasts and I'm like, but this is, every time I've seen this is a well put together production.
Well,
so,
let's not
done.
compliment Jay too much.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is Chris and I's idea.
For the last year, Jay's been trying to take credit for this idea. And
I think he's got a performance appraisal coming up. We don't need to.
I heard you guys had to beg him to do a podcast.
We
Not
did.
the other way around.
Wait, who's Jay?
It's our old marketing guy. It took him a year to finally get on board with us to do this. This was in all transparency Jay's idea. It took Brad and I a year to get on board with him.
You should have brains somewhere in the operation.
I mean, we took it to the next level.
Chris and I are the blind leading the blind.
Very well said. So, no, thanks for joining us. It is really good to have you. Tom, how long have you been at the clinic now? I'm sure it's longer than I think.
7.5 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 7.5 years.
Yeah, so Tom and I go back really to the Big Brothers Big Sisters days,
right.
and you were at O'Shea, and then Tom was the board chair at the chamber.
Okay.
When I was hired, and he's regretted that moment ever since. I'm sure.
Still living that one down.
But I thought it was. I would have guessed 4 or 5 years. So and a lot has happened at Springfield Clinic in your time there. I mean, the growth, at least from an outsider's perspective of observing, it seems like a different organization than it was 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Oh, we've more than doubled the number of our facilities in the time that I've been there.
Wow.
Our senior executive team has turned over, new CEO. So it really is a different company from when I joined. But it's a great place to be. And the clinic is doing a lot of amazing things. And the growth that we've been able to experience, it's been challenging in all kinds of stories along the way, but incredibly rewarding. How we've been able to expand care and the different services, and the investment in the facilities that the partnership has made has just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, talk a little bit about the communities that you guys are in. I had no idea you had 9 locations in the Peoria, Morton, Bloomington area. I mean,
Yeah, I tell everybody we go Peoria to Effingham, Macomb to Decatur, Taylorville, basically a 100-mile radius outside of the Springfield area. And I think we've doubled the number of providers since I walked in the door, which was 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. So, and Tom's seen more of it than I have, but the growth has been, and it's kind of the way that the market is right now. The industry is consolidating, and so you must have a growth mindset. You must be in an acquisition mode, because if you are not growing, you're preparing to be consumed by somebody who is.
Gotcha.
We saw it with airlines and banks, and a bunch of industries have gone through that. Healthcare is very much going through that right now, and we're adamant about staying independent because we think that the best decisions are made when a physician's deciding what care you get, not not a larger system who may be owned by private equity or an insurance company or something like that. The physician should be making a decision about what care you get, and that model is one that's kind of gone by the wayside quite a bit. But we're adamant about maintaining our independence, and that's why we're trying to grow it.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, Really cool. So you've been a little over 5 years, you said?
Yeah.
And I know you were channel1450.com prior, right?
Yeah, about 7 or 8 years, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just sitting here. I covered a couple of Tom's kids, which Tom was my first conversation at the clinic. And so that...
Is that right?
I love it.
That starts that. I mean, I covered Matt, your nephew, Cole. I mean, you know, half of the executive team when I got here, I think I'd covered kids. And it's just, it's the way we got to know each other a little bit, you know, and it was a really cool way for me to get to know this community, which I'm not a native of.
Yeah. Where are you from originally?
Over by the Quincy area, Minden.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, nice.
And, you know, I mean, Springfield's a town where it's a where'd you go to high school town, you know, and I'm an outsider as it relates to that. But, you know, I got to know all the high schools rather than one high school by doing that. And it was a really cool experience.
Did you start 10 Question Tuesday? Was that your deal? Yeah. That was awesome.
Phil Maton, who's a Major League Baseball pitcher right now, just signed, I think, with the Rays the other day, was our very first team.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And we did a bunch of those over the years, and we kind of joke about it. You know, sometimes I was glad that the key card still worked when I came to work the next day.
Riley McMinn was one of my favorites.
One of the all-time greats.
One of the all-time greats. Yeah.
But no, that was that was really how I got to know this community. I was at 20 for a little bit, Channel 20 for a little bit, doing sports with Brian Bowes, and then we started over at Channel 1450 and got that really.
Brian was with
going.
you, right?
Yeah. He spent a couple years with us and then moved on, and it was more fun than it should have been. To be honest with you, it was a great
awesome.
time. Yeah.
Well, I know coming from Decatur, was a very difficult town for me to get plugged in with. Not having grown up here, like you said. Mm-hmm. So I definitely can appreciate that. So.
Yeah, Brad often tells a story about thinking he could drive back and forth from Decatur.
Oh yeah, I really did.
And everybody want to know where your kids go to school, what church do you go to? You shop local, or you live in the community.
The minute I bought that building out on Ogden, I started losing money immediately. When I was driving back to Decatur, and I never even knew it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but no, Springfield's been really great to us, and I moved here I think 7 or 8 years ago, and I love it.
Well, I think that kind of the reason I went to Tom when I was trying to decide what I was going to do next was because I knew that Tom was plugged in. He was very civic minded. He was involved in the community. Those things were important to him. He was at the clinic. There must be something going on at the clinic that made it worthy as it related to that. And so we started having conversations about that. And, when I really felt like the community breathed life into Channel 1450 and really nurtured us and got us off the ground and accepted us. And, we were a disruptor in the market a little bit when it came to
that was a brand new media. Entrepreneurial.
And so people didn't have to let us in like they did, so the fact that they did and really embraced us and really helped us grow, I really wanted to stay here, and I really wanted to do something that would reciprocate to the community. And so I said, Tom, how do I do that? Like, where do I begin? And one thing led to another, and got here. But I think he mentioned the executive team that's a part of this. Like, there's very much that mindset within our team now. What are we doing from a civic responsibility standpoint, which I think is a transition that the clinic has gone through over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, I think they've always been civic minded, but it was probably more at the individual level.
Yeah.
I think it's been elevated to more of the corporate level.
Gotcha.
And it's always been there. It just maybe hasn't been as visible, with the Springfield Clinic brand behind it.
Well, I think it's just, we walked into an organization that was still had the cultural feel of a mom and pop shop, I mean, it was, and there's something important about that. I remember going to my doctor in a small town in Ursa. When something happened, you have your little small town doc, right? Yeah. And Springfield Clinic had that feel. And I think in the past 5 or 6 years, we've sort of found ourselves as we've grown going from that mom and pop shop feel to sort of a larger regional and even statewide organization. And with that carries a new set of responsibilities, a new set of obligations. And so to Tom's point, I think our responsibility was to always care for people in the community.
Sure.
And now that we are who we are, there's a responsibility greater than just caring for the patients who walk through our door. It's how are we brokering partnerships throughout our community? How are we working with other organizations to try and create opportunities that may not be there, serve underserved communities, et cetera?
Sure.
And so it's really been a transition that, again, I think that, when you got a guy like this who's at the table at the executive level, that's going to be a part of the conversation regardless. And it's why I knew that this was something that interested me. And we get to do that kind of work every day now. And that's fun.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
And I would say, as somebody I was gone for 20 years and then came back here in 2002. So I've been back over 20 years. and having docs at Springfield Clinic, while you may have transitioned from that mom and pop shop kind of feel internal cultural wise, when I go to see my doc, I still have that same feel.
Amen.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
That's great to hear.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
It
absolutely.
goes along
Yes.
with it. So
I
while
agree.
you
Yeah.
may be thinking this on a much bigger, more regional, more corporate kind of mindset from a growth standpoint, you still haven't lost that Springfield hometown feel.
I think that's one of the things that makes Springfield special, right? Is that it is that big small town, where sometimes people say that in a negative connotation, but it's not. I mean,
That's one of the things that makes us unique.
yeah, because if you're willing to get involved in a community like Springfield and you need help,
Yes.
I mean it's a phone call away.
Couldn't agree
I mean
more.
you reach out to somebody that can get you in contact with the right person, and you can do a lot of things. And I look at everything that's happened in Springfield over the last handful of years. Chris, think back to the school district work we did at the chamber to help Springfield 186, and I think that was a little part of their transition to what they are now, and Jennifer Gill's fantastic leadership and the community getting behind their vision for improvement and all the other things that have gone on in the city of Springfield. It's because of boots on the ground, people that are from here, or people that have made it their home.
You're right.
And they walk hand in hand. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
It's what makes it go. And I'm not so sure that other communities are wired that way.
Yeah.
I think it is special here.
And I know
That's
Decatur,
really well said.
Yeah, it
Very
is.
well said,
Because Decatur is not that way. I mean, it's a small town, but so many of the people that I went to high school with left and never came back. And so you've got the ADMs of the world, and you have the hospital systems, but most of the folks that are running that city didn't necessarily grow up there.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah.
So, and that's not a bad thing. It's just a different
It's just
thing.
different.
Yes,
And
it's
this is
different.
how
And I would say we're seeing more. In this, I have no data to back this up, by the way. So, but I would say we're seeing more of that today than we were 10 and 15 years ago in Springfield. More of our kids coming back to this community to live and work and raise families, to your point, I think a lot of people talk about it being the smallest large town around, or vice versa, as a negative thing. I see it as a really positive deal.
Yeah.
The fact that help is one phone call away, not four.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's a big thing.
Well, I think that what you shared is the litmus test for us as we've grown. Can we maintain the mom and pop shop culture while understanding we've got a bigger obligation, bigger responsibility as it relates to, what it is that we're doing? And, there was a day where Ray Williams, our CEO, called in basically the entire executive team and our top directors. And he said, I want to lay out what my expectations are for patient experience as we move into this new area. And as we continue to grow. And
what was some of that? What was that?
Yeah. So he we need to create a modern, convenient patient experience. As we've been transitioning, we're working to get online scheduling created, opportunities so people can go on. If you go to our website right now and you search, I want an OB who's accepting patients, that female OB accepting patients, our search will find it for you. But it's more than that even. It's I think the healthcare experience is sort of intimidating if you're a patient. You're already vulnerable, you're sick, and you're injured.
Sure.
And so when you walk in, to feel nurtured, to feel taken care of is an important part of the process. And if you walk in and you feel like you're at a cattle call,
Right.
and the nurse walks out and says, Hembrough,
Yeah.
Hembrough, or Wike,
Yeah.
and shouts at me, you kind of jolted from it or whatever. And I can't say that never happens, but
Right.
we work really hard to try and make, I mean, you described it, Chris, you still feel like they know who you are when you walk in the door. And we are intentional about trying to keep that feel even as we've grown, because that is what separates you. And it's a tough time in healthcare right now, and that it's service, man. I mean, you guys know what service is all about.
Yep.
And if you can create a great service and a great experience for patients, they'll come back. And
Absolutely.
he really laid that all out for us, and he said, this is what our expectation is moving forward. We had, and in some ways we had sort of fallen into the industry was late to move on some of the modern conveniences, online scheduling, and how you can find things online and all that kind of stuff. You can reservation at a restaurant, no problem.
Right.
Can you reserve your doctor's appointment?
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sure. And so we got to figure out how to do these things. We have to do these things that are going to differentiate us. And So we've been working on that ever since, but it's really his driving force that has said that
You guys do
doesn't
a great
accept less
job.
than that.
I mean, 0 wait times. Like when I go in there, I mean, I sit down maybe for a minute or two, and I'm right back there. You know, you guys do a phenomenal job, and the follow-up calls and everything. I've had not one bad experience there.
That's great.
So yeah.
Yep, really appreciate that.
Yep.
So you said, Tom, earlier, twice as many facilities as when you started. You've
Yes.
more than doubled.
Yes.
How many facilities in total do you guys have? If that's a fair question.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Physical facilities, both our clinical facilities and our support facilities for, we've got different administrative functions that are in different locations, but we're north of 80 different locations. Yeah. Then you throw in our outreach locations. So a lot of our physicians will go into these rural communities on a regular basis and see patients where they are, and, which is phenomenal. And Zach can talk more about that program. But when you throw that into the mix, we're well over 90, pushing 100 different locations.
Wow.
It's a big job to manage all that, I guess.
Yeah. I got a great team. They do a phenomenal job. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So who's the visionary, if you will? And I'm sure there's more than one person. Maybe it's the executive team that's looking out maybe 5 years ago, doing what you're doing today. Because there's a lot of new buildings around that look really nice in Springfield.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give a lot of credit to our CEO, Ray Williams. He's been all over the country. He's got 40 years in healthcare. A lot of it on the finance side. He's been a chief operating officer.
Gotcha.
He's been a consultant. He's seen all of it. And when he came here, I think that he saw the direction the industry was moving and realized what direction we needed to be moving. And it goes back to the consolidation and so forth. But
Sure.
And then I think the leadership team has really bought into his mentality and his ideas. And I think after every once in a while, he'll come and he'll say, "This is what we're going to do." And we'll look at each other and we'll go, "That seems impossible." And then we'll get there and we'll do it and we'll accomplish it. And we will have done something that put us ahead of competition, or will have positioned us correctly. And at a certain point, you just say, "You know what? He's playing three moves ahead."
Yeah.
And so we're going to trust what he's asking us to do.
Yeah.
And if we don't fully understand it now, we'll understand it eventually.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, it's, I'm just a big believer in the guy. He's really put us in a great position.
Yeah. I would characterize that as he has high expectations. And I think from our administrative team perspective, we're all wired to be problem solvers, to be creative, and, to be in an environment where you have those high expectations. Sure. And you have a team that's as close as our team is, and motivated to think outside the box and come up with different kinds of solutions. Then we've been able to do some pretty innovative things. And at the end of the day, patients, I think, are the ones that benefit in the communities that benefits from that. And that's really the engine that kind of keeps this whole thing going. I agree wholeheartedly, Zach. It's, Ray's vision and setting those expectations, and then, working with Zach is phenomenal, and we got a lot of phenomenal colleagues that we're just able to roll our sleeves up and figure things out.
Yeah.
And Ray's not a Springfield guy originally, and I think that's hard coming into a community like this and leading an organization like ours and so forth. And I think it's good that we have a local executive team by and large that has some of the relationships, and so you've got great leadership and vision there, and it's supplemented by our relationships and the people we've come to know in the community over the years, because it's so important to have the community involved in so many of the things that we're doing. Our trajectory really took a different direction when he got here, and it's been in the best interest of the clinic and the patients who come to the clinic, no doubt about it.
How long's Ray been here?
He started a couple of months after I did. Okay. So just
Gotcha.
About 7 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Another thing I think that's worth noting with our executive team, probably 85% of our team joined the clinic in a different role. And we're promoted up through the ranks to hold the positions that they hold now. And I think that adds a lot of value, because there's a lot of understanding of how the organization works and in history of how we got to where we are.
Where we used to be and where we're headed and where we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Zach, what's a typical day look like for you at work?
Yeah, it's different every day, which is kind of like my old job, which is great. You never know what it's going to be. But so I've got marketing and communications now are all of our brand, which we rebranded right when I walked in the door, which is a Ray-led initiative, So that was a big piece we did for a while. Once we got sort of stabilized on the branding and marketing side, we started building out a patient experience department. So we got a team who does our internal communications, but also manages, if you go into the doctor and you see, you get a survey afterwards asking you how it was.
Yeah.
We had 114,000 of those filled out last year. We read every comment that comes in. Our team reads all the comments. We share all the good comments with our staff who've done good things.
Yep.
And then we've also, over the past couple of years, built out a community advocacy and government relations arm. And so today I've been on call with our lobbyists, and Friday was the deadline for legislation to be submitted here. We got the session underway, so we're looking at all the bills that are coming through and which ones impact us. And how are we doing that? So it's some combination of conversations about advertisement campaigns that we've got running, or how we're branding ourselves, or how we're communicating about ourselves, to what's our patient experience look like, what tenets do we have in place for that, and then how are we, a lot of sponsorships for the community, a lot of government advocacy and government relations work. I'll be talking to legislators some days. And so, it's
different every day.
Different
That's
every
awesome.
day.
Yeah. So talk about the dynamic of the relationship, like, say, a Memorial Hospital. How does that work? Because there may be a lot of people that don't really know how all that works.
Yeah, so I asked when I first walked in, I said, so what is our relationship with HSHS and Memorial? And the answer was, well, it's complicated, you see. And it is complicated because all of our missions are the same.
Sure.
We're here to care for patients. We're here to make sure we have a healthier community. We're here to care for our community. We collaborate in some ways on that, and we compete in some ways in that.
Gotcha.
And so because of it, it's interesting. I mean, if you've ever worked with someone where you're collaborating at this table, and at that table you are competing.
Right.
And competition can be tense at times, and so it's an interesting relationship. But at the end of the day, I think as long as I keep hearing Michelle Clapfelter, our chief legal officer, saying, if you put the patients at the center of the decision, what's the most? What do we do
exactly.
here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
excellent. That answers.
I think most of the time we end up there, and so our relationship still centers around patients at the end of the day, and even though it can be a little colorful here and there on this, but it is what it is.
Well said.
Yep.
To your point about competition, it can be stressful, but it can also be really healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can also stretch us and make us focus on our mission that much more, which in your case, obviously, as well as the other entities, is the patient. So, and as somebody who's used all of those systems, at times more than I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, getting back,
my experience has been awesome. So.
Getting back to what we were talking about, the community, that Springfield being a big small town, one of the areas that the groups collaborate on are those types of services that the city's not big enough to support competing entities perhaps, and it makes a lot more sense to collaborate and make sure that the community has the service. And the other thing that's going on in nationally, anybody in healthcare knows this, is shortage of doctors. I mean, it's just getting worse and worse. And coming out of COVID with the burnout that everybody in the healthcare field experienced, that it's becoming more and more challenging to find enough doctors to provide the care that people need. And anybody that's been in business knows, and we all hear about how difficult it is to recruit people to Springfield. I think it's difficult to recruit doctors anywhere, but especially so in this part of the country.
No doubt.
But I think that the way Springfield Clinic is organized, with it being a physician-owned, physician-led organization, is becoming more and more rare, and that appeals to a lot of physicians. And then the culture that we're building, and for the opportunity for them to thrive. And you know the stats off the top of your head, Zach, the number of physicians that are ranked in the top 1% nationally and 10%. I mean, I think that is indicative of the environment that we're trying to create for physicians to do their best work.
Of our 700 providers, over half of them are top 10 or top 1% nationally in patient experience. And that's up 3 times what it was 4 years ago when we really started down this path of how do we create a great patient experience. And And those are really small things a lot of times. It's, you mentioned you don't have a wait. Well, sometimes you do have a wait, and sometimes you're in the exam room a little too long without hearing from somebody, and you start feeling like they've forgotten about you.
Right.
Something as simple as a nurse popping their head in the door, say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. We're running a little behind, but we'll be here as quick as possible. That small piece of communication is the difference between you having a good experience or a really miserable one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of thing moves the needle for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
And so we worked really hard to educate our team on these small things that can go a long way. Eye contact, talking to the patient and calling them by their name, there's just, it's not hard to treat people with respect and dignity. And sometimes we're all so busy that it's hard to remember, but that's the cattle call mentality. And that's what we really have to stave off is that whole field.
Explain how those surveys work and how that ranking happens, because I think that's important to know that a lot of people may not realize.
Yeah, I mean, so if you go to the doctor and you fill out the survey, it comes in and there's a handful of categories. We track all those categories to see how we're performing against national benchmarks. And when we started 4 or 5 years ago in this, we were 60th percentile, and our goal is to be upper decile in every category.
Okay.
And that's been Ray's expectation. To Tom's point about Ray has high expectation. Top decile every category.
Oh, wow.
23 numbers just came in. We're top decile in 4 of the 6 categories, and in the overall, which takes all of them and aggregates them, we're the 91st percentile from a care provider standpoint in the overall category. And
that sounds impressive.
Yeah, and it's up 25, 30% percentage points from when we started. And so, it's just like anything. If you put attention on it, if you deliberate about trying to create a great patient experience, you can figure it out. And I got to give Kim Leishner-Root and our team on the patient experience side a huge effort. But it's really been a group large effort. Everybody's come together to help. It's Tom. It's the have you been in the pediatrics facility?
No, I've heard it's amazing.
It's insane.
I mean, really cool.
With the big
Turned out
slide
good.
and
That's all.
there's xylophones outside and spindles on the wall and inset chairs in the walls and all kinds of cool art on the wall in the exam rooms. And the first time I went into it, I started playing with all the things, and I thought, I have a 7 and 4-year-old who have an abundance of toys, and none of them brought the inner child out in me the way that this building brought the inner child out in me.
Cool.
So it's really, it takes everybody to create that
And
sort of
before
thing.
the PEDS building was built, where were kids taken care of?
So we had 2 pediatric locations. Second floor of our Wabash facility.
Okay.
And then you guys were just there helping us with a
Yes,
broken
little
pipe, as a
water
matter of
shot
fact. Yes. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
And then we had another facility on Farragut, an older facility. So we combined those 2 in this one location.
Very good. Are you guys acquiring other practices around the areas you serve, or how do you grow into new markets?
Yeah, I think that as we're growth minded, whether it's traditional recruitment of new physicians or Tom made the point a moment ago that we're an attractive model for physicians now, because you can go be employed by a big system. You don't have a lot of control over your practice, what your schedule is and stuff like that. The value of Springfield Clinic is you can come in, you can get in track to be a partner, and you have autonomy in your practice. So you can, if you want to work 4 days a week because you've got a family thing 1 day a week, and if you're okay with what that means for your earning potential, then it's your practice. Yeah. And we try to help them optimize how they run their practice, but we let physicians run their practice. It goes back to the whole idea of independence, and we believe that the best decisions come when the physicians are making the decision about your care. That's awesome. And so we try to get out of their way when it comes to all that stuff, and support them and help them however we can and possible and stuff. But I think that's one of the reasons why we're attractive in potential acquisition mode. Was certainly there's a lot of people who are looking at Springfield Clinic right now, independent practices out there that are still out there that are curious about what it is that we offer. And I think it's just because we're really well positioned for what's happening, I think, with the consolidation.
So it's those new recruits, that are graduating from, med school, and then those independent practices, that are interested in not maintaining their independence, but being part of a larger organization. And there's still, a lot of those out there in the world. And a lot of them, struggle with, the business support side, right? I mean, physicians want to see patients, they want to take care of people, but they're forced into being an IT expert and, a marketing expert, and, all those things. Finance. Yeah, the clinic can wrap around them and support them, and just, you worry about seeing patients, and we'll provide all these support services for you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a big. That's got to be a huge deal for folks who are in that acquisition mode.
Yeah.
To, as you put it, have the clinic be able to wrap all those things around them. I can see my patients. I don't have to worry about all those things anymore.
Yeah.
It's got to be a big selling point, I would think.
Well, and I talked about us becoming a more influential organization throughout our region and throughout the state. There's strength in that also. If you're fighting a fight and you're an independent practice of 5 physicians, whether you're fighting with a local municipality about whatever is going on with your facility, an insurance company, or a local media organization, whatever it is, when you've got that level of support that can do that, you can only do so much with that when you're a small independent practice. And so I think that's part of the value too, for sure, is that they see that they're taken care of on all those fronts when they come here.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. What do we not know about the clinic that we ought to know?
Yeah, good question.
I got to be careful how I answer that.
Next question.
No, honestly, the first thing that came to my thought is like our admin team, like we're pretty tight and we have a lot of fun together. I mean, we work hard, but we have a lot of fun together. It's not unusual to, I mean, we're bantering all weekend about different things. And, one of my coworkers said it well, and she's been in healthcare, I think her entire career. People talk about work-life balance, but it's more about in healthcare. It's like, how do you integrate work into your life? And in healthcare, like you're never off. You just aren't. And but I think we've got a very healthy environment to kind of support the flexibility that we need and meet these high expectations that we have with our CEO and our partners expect a lot, and as well they should. Well they should. It's I'd look back on my career and I think every stop along the way, it's been a phenomenal experience, which I consider myself extremely blessed to have had, those experiences at this point in my life. But where I'm at Springfield Clinic is special. It is unusual, and it's the people I work with that make it that way.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. You asked me the other night, Brad, if I like my job, if I like coming to work.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more with Tom that I love coming to work every day.
That's true.
And part of it is the team, and not just our executive team, but I feel like from a brand and experience team, I'm surrounded by super talented people who are better than I am at every single thing that they do on the team, and I love it that way.
That's awesome.
But you mentioned, Chris, like the competition is a good thing, and I know that we got athletic mindsets at the table here, and part of the reason we did Channel 1450 was because I believe, like, I learned far more on the field and on the court than I ever learned in a classroom, honestly. But the real world things that I still, work ethic and teamwork and discipline and all those things, I learned more athletically than I ever learned in a classroom that I still apply now.
We talk about that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And the competition piece exists, and everybody on the team has that same mindset. We don't want to lose. We want to get after it. Ray's got a phrase called strategic speed, which means that there's see a window, shoot a window. You can't just sit back and let red tape and difficult. We probably could if we stopped everything and then stop everything and do it if it's an opportunity worth getting after.
I like it.
And so he empowers us really to go out there and fight those fights and compete in ways that allow us to take the next steps on things and to win business. And that's fun.
That's awesome.
That's a fun environment to be in. We're empowered to be that way, and we have a team that we can really lean on each other so that we can pull some of it off when I think a lot of people have underestimated whether or not we can, stand up toe to toe in some of those fights. And what else can you ask for?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a great place to work, and it's fun every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly how he sounded when I asked him the question the other night. I was like, he loves his job. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and there is nothing like that.
And to have that kind of culture,
get up every
that's
morning
a productive
and go
culture.
to a culture like that you love to go.
Yes.
And you love to do your job, but you get to really enjoy the people you get to do it shoulder to shoulder with. It's awesome.
And Chris and
we are grateful we get to have that kind of community here inside of our place here, for sure.
Yeah, and we have that same mentality in our own company. I mean, we hate to lose. We love to win. You know, in fact, we hate to lose probably more than we love to win, quite frankly. But, you know, and if we're the same way. We're obviously a small organization, but, you know, if we have an opportunity, we're gonna get after it, right? I mean, and it's a ton of fun being that way. You know, and being, you know, an ex-athlete, if you will, and growing up in locker rooms and, you know, having that whole mindset. And you're right. I learned way more on the athletic fields and in locker rooms and from my coaches than I ever did from a classroom or a teacher, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I agree 100%.
Well, I talked to our team, and look, work is work, and there's sometimes it can be difficult, and sometimes it's not always you don't want to spend every minute with work. There is important to have that balance. But I talk to my team a lot about, I savor every day that I come in and get to work with this group.
That's great.
Because it is nothing is static, and things will change. And I try to remind them of that. I said, you're surrounded by colleagues and counterparts right now that are really, really talented. Like some of the work that our brand and experience and communication team does on a daily basis, I'm just so impressed by the mindset that they bring to work to try and elevate the level. You know what I mean? Yep. And I try to, and I don't have to do much work as it relates to that. They drive that expectation now, you know, but I tell them, I say, it's not like that everywhere. And so savor it while you have this moment, because an opportunity is going to come along and you're going to have to take it, or you might have to move somewhere. You might have to do something. I'm be 40 this year. And I've worked in really great places like Tom explained. I've never felt quite the same sense of energy about work that I feel it now.
That's cool.
And the likelihood that it remains that way forever is very small.
That's cool.
But trying to savor it.
Yeah, enjoy it while you have it. You're exactly right. Absolutely, 100%.
A lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, and now that we've offended every teacher in town about,
I didn't go to school here. I'm just kidding. And I love Jennifer Gill. I think she's amazing. You know what I mean? We had her on, so
I just had to say it.
We all love teachers. Let's just get that out there.
Of all of them.
Remember all that work we did?
It just goes without saying.
I just had to say it. You know what? Why not? No, this has been terrific, and thanks for just all the work that you guys do and what you provide the community. I know we were talking before we started how important healthcare is for this community, and between HSHS and Memorial and Springfield Clinic, the number of people you employ, the services you provide, the care you provide is
second to none, no question about it. When I moved over from Decatur, my neighbor was my primary care doctor, Dr. Baumberger, and then he went into administration with Memorial Hospital, and I kind of lost him. And then, you know, the new primary care, I just didn't really hit it off well with, you know. And then I moved over here, and then I kind of was bouncing around, but now I have Dr. Pittman as my primary care, and he's Springfield Clinic doc. And he is terrific. I feel like I'm back home. Does that make sense? Like he cares about my health, and I'm the only guy he's treating, which I'm not. But I'm sure you can pass that along to him. But, seriously.
He's my doc too, and I feel the same way.
So,
we want to respect your time. I always ask folks this question, so I'm going to ask it as Brad calls, when's the question?
The question, yes. So, and he's old enough that he can answer this.
Did you say you're?
I'll be 44 here.
Okay,
Make us all feel good, right? So for both of you guys, if you could look back and tell your younger self 20 years ago, take this advice based on what you've learned over the last 20 years, Tom, in 30 years, what would that one or two pieces of advice be?
Oh, boy. Jump in if you got an answer. I need to think about this one for a second.
Well, I remember when we started at 1450, we were trying to create a livelihood for ourselves. You know, we were trying to, and I'm sure you guys can relate to that. There's a part where you're kind of starting a business where every decision feels so heavy, and everything is so, you know, there's so much weight on all of it, and you carry the stress, and you're afraid everything that you do is going to be, if you didn't do that thing right, it might send you in a trajectory that's going to be, and I think I tell myself to just enjoy some of it and be a little less serious with some of that decision-making stuff. And I think there's a balance there, because I think sometimes you really got to dial in and get focused and hammer through, and you do have to make right decisions. You do have to weigh the things and go the right direction. But a lot of it, sometimes you can offset a good decision with a bad attitude or the stress of it or something. And so I think a lot of what I've learned is that, like, look, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. And, you know, a great family, great kids. Like there's there's some things in life now. I think that there's some perspective on that.
Well said.
It's just. So maybe the weight of all those decisions that I used to really churn over and lose sleep over and stuff like that are, you don't have to stress quite so hard about all those.
Yeah,
well
pretty
said.
well said.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would probably advise myself to like slow things down, slow things down as much as you can, and I mean that from a way of savoring those experiences as they happen, the highs and the lows, and be a little more reflective on them. I think of my career path and everything that went along with it, and feel completely lucky, fortunate, blessed that things fell the way that they did. And but I think slowing down and just enjoying it more.
Sure.
Kind of along with, Zach's point of view, I think when you get a little more, road behind you than you have in front of you, you start thinking that way a little bit.
I agree. And, I had some things happen. You lost some friends in my life, and of course Todd Garner, and not celebrating the wins as much as we should have, when he was around, and when I look back, there are a lot of wins that we didn't necessarily, because we're looking out the windshield, not the rear view mirror. And I'm with you guys on that. I think that is very well said.
Yeah. And we hear that a lot with the question.
I'm
sure. People say, wish I had just slowed down and enjoyed the journey a little bit more.
Well, let's take our own advice and start doing it.
Hey, this has been great. Thank you guys for carving out a little bit of time for us. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Appreciate you doing this.
And it's too early to have a Miller Liter. I have a few in my fridge.
I don't know where you got that idea.
I do want to say really quickly, the Peerless brand has become known for high-end service, but either one of you, I've called on a number of occasions when I had something going on, and it's during high tide times, and that phone call always gets returned quickly. Chris has stopped by to pick up fans from my house when the basement flooded last year during storms and stuff like that. You guys have always gone out above and beyond. It's the reason that we call you guys whenever we have something going on, and this is cool. I think what you guys are doing here is neat, and I'm really glad you got Jay on board with the whole idea.
I picked the microphones out just so you know.
The stories you get to hear when I tune into this is you're talking about the leadership of our community that is coming through, and to hear their philosophy is gives us a chance to learn. It gives the community a chance to understand those folks better. It's easy to cast aspersions at the people who are in decision making positions, and it's not easy, as you guys know, a lot of times. So this is cool what you're doing. It's different, and really appreciate the work you're doing with it.
Yeah,
thanks. Thank you very much.
It is interesting because we've heard from so many people. We love hearing the story behind somebody's story.
Right.
And we do appreciate you guys trusting us to work with you at the clinic.
Yes.
You guys are at the top of our list for sure, along with a couple of others. So
you've earned it. You've earned it.
Thank you.
Whatever customer calls, we go. So
I'm glad you're actually working and picking up fans for a change.
once in a while. When I don't have my arm in a sling, I might throw one over my shoulder.
The first time I traveled with him, we got through security, and the metal detector went off like 10 times, and then the guy wanted him. I said, is there any part of your body that does not have metal in it? Unbelievable. But no, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks much. Appreciate it. Thank you.